residential tech talk, lighting specialist to residential tech.
Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, we welcome back two esteemed guests and great friends of mine and many people in the custom integration industry and CEDIA family. Jamie Briesemeister joins us from St. Louis, where she is CEO and co-founder of Integration Controls, and Patrick Hartman joins us from Reno, Nevada, where he is General Manager of Technology Design Associates. Patrick and Jamie were the two people who recruited me to help launch the CEDIA Business Xchange conference back in 2014. And that experience created a bond and a friendship that has lasted almost 10 years now. So happy to have them both back on the podcast to talk about CEDIA Expo and their class that they taught together, which we'll let them describe and tell us the title of. But welcome back to the podcast, my friends.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Jeremy.
It's you've both been on the podcast before. It's been a while for both of you, so it's great to see you again. We saw each other at CEDIA Expo. I saw Jamie on the show floor. Patrick, I saw you getting ready for your class, and that's what kind of caught my eye when I looked back to the listing. And then I remembered just while we were talking before the podcast that this was the class that you typically teach with industry veteran and beloved educator and the instructor Frank White, but who was under the weather, couldn't make the trip. So you called in a big favor from a good friend and worthy partner in crime. So Jamie came in and saved the day. So we'll talk about that class. But my first question to Patrick is, don't you ever work?
Yeah, you got a lot of nerve, Jeremy. That's a running joke. You're the one that posts that you're all over the world doing nothing but fun stuff instead of working. So
that's right.
Kind of a running joke with us.
That's right. Well, yes, it's been a little less travel lately, but yeah, you do give me a hard time. And the last time I was just waiting for it, and you finally commented, and I said, "There it is." So
I purposely posted that just so you'd comment on it.
Exactly. Well, so actually, we'll start, since Patrick's already chatting here. We'll talk about what was your observation, what were your feelings there at CEDIA Expo? Generally, I felt like the vibe was really great. A lot of people had positive experiences. Generally, how did you feel about the event?
Well, I only had one day on the show floor, but 2 days in education was just jam-packed. I mean, virtually every course was sold out. Lots of butts and seats, which is great. We did offer a couple of classes twice this year, which both sold out, or pretty well close to sold out. I think education is hungry. I mean, there was one class, and I don't know, Jamie, if we ever did our polling of our class, but I know in at least two of my other classes, we polled the class, and I would say on average, it was between 25 and 30% newbies, like first timers. And I was shocked. I mean, like that brought back to, 2012, 2013, when we used to see a lot of newbies. And then all of a sudden this year was just an explosion. So that's promising. The people are sending their staff to Expo to learn and to see the new things, and the recruitment is up, obviously. So from an education standpoint, I was happy to see, the final numbers look pretty good. Show floor, I thought it was better, and it seemed to be more people, and as it turned out, it was more people than Dallas. I think the vibe was there. I think everybody was excited about it. It wasn't packed. It was spread out well enough that you weren't like jammed in the aisles. So generally speaking, I give it a B+. It was really good.
Yeah. What about you, Jamie? What was your experience? You were mostly on the show floor, right? So you got maybe more of that perspective than from an education standpoint.
I felt like the very first day of Expo was like 2 days in one. Really, at the end of the day, I was kind of shook my head and said, "Is this the first day? There's still 2 days more to go." But no, it felt like the buzz is back, and it was nice to feel busy, but also I don't know if the floor was laid out a little differently, if COVID had any impact on that, but it was busy and full, but without being elbows and elbows, which was nice. There were a lot of different events that were happening too, on top of the conference and expo itself. There was a day of discovery that Technology Designer put together. That was a really great event. Happened to be a part of that. And I think that combining all of those things together really is part of what made the show floor feel so full, like 2 days in one. But it was great. It was nice to see people again and see our products out on display.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that it's different than it used to be. The floor, they used to have difficulty finding space for all the exhibitors at CEDIAs of old times. You'd have to leak out into side rooms and things. And we did have some demo rooms downstairs, but you had space on the show floor that wasn't being used. And of course, it's a big convention hall, but so we're not back to that by any means. We're not going to kid ourselves that was what it was. But for what the show was, what was on display there, it was a very engaging environment. And that's what I felt as well. And of course, seeing familiar faces, seeing new faces, all of that was great. The one kind of blind spot for me was I just booked my schedule on the show floor entirely, and I have no time to spare. And so getting downstairs to the classes, which I would love an entire show just of that, and be able to sit and listen and learn. But to do both is impossible for me. So I literally only got downstairs once for a demo space, and then once for a class where I was meeting Mitchell Klein before he was doing a piece. So, the best part of the show to me was running into old friends, and I know that's a big highlight for everybody that is a returning veteran. That networking, that just getting to see people you've grown in the industry with, and seeing you two there. And one of my highlights, honestly, was day 2. I was just mentally drained. I'm an introvert. I can't go multiple days and into the night, and I had made no dinner plans on the second night, which was actually Thursday. And I thought, I am just going to take this in. I'm going to go out to dinner by myself, go back and watch football, and just call it a night. And the next day I rallied. I had a lot better energy the next day, so it was good. But then that next evening I had dinner plans, but then Patrick reached out to me, texted me, said, I have a table at a steak place. Come on by. I would have said the night before, hey, thanks, but I can't. I was ready to do it. Let's go. Double dinner.
Nice.
I actually went for appetizers and a couple of drinks, which thanks Patrick for doing that. That was great to catch up with you and your colleague. And I still made it to dinner and had a long night, but it was well worth it to catch up. So that all being said, what were some of the trends, that things like products? I know it's all incremental these days. It's evolutionary. You don't see things just kind of jump out at you that you didn't expect. But any observations, Patrick, in the short amount of time you were able to be on the floor, in terms of what categories were kind of drawing your attention?
Yeah, I mean, I was pretty specialized. I really didn't have anything outside of our normal box to go visit because I was so limited on time. But the vendors I did visit, Lutron had some amazing new products that they launched that everybody in the world's been waiting on. Josh AI clearly had a massive improvement in what they're offering, and quite a few of the speaker manufacturers have some unique differences and things they've kind of capitalized on for the outdoor space specifically. But I think everybody's getting into that small aperture feel, which we've been doing. A lot of us have been doing for years, but some have not. They didn't figure it out until this year. Those were the highlights of mine. The AI stuff is intriguing to me. I'm still not going to drink all the Kool-Aid yet, but it's very intriguing to me, and I'm anxious to see where it brings it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Josh AI, founded many years ago at this point, with the actual term AI in its name. Now there are other companies doing a version of AI in their kind of programming language, ability to sort of speak some commands to train your system to do, macros essentially. But, Savant is doing that with the Apple product. It's kind of interesting. I mean, you see a ton of video walls. Obviously, that was very evident everywhere you looked, it seemed.
Yeah.
And they're getting better. And if you can call it more attainable, right? So what was $1 million is now half. But Quantum had a fantastic display. I don't know if you had a chance to see that demo.
Yes.
I was really impressed with that one. And I saw them last year too, and they've changed their video technology. It was obvious at how good it was.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was even their presentation was better. I just felt like they weren't having to sort of sell so hard at it. They were really just embracing, like, we're figuring this out, and we'd love to work with you. It was impressive. And they blew you away with the audio too, because that's been sort of the little side pushback from people that maybe are naysayers, that where are you going to put the speakers? But they put them around it and made it really loud. It was not limited in audio quality. But yeah, what that Lutron booth was something, wasn't it? With the experiential world that they created inside there.
It was.
Did you prefer the spa side, Patrick, or what was the other side? The other theme? I'm drawing a blank now. I clearly like the spa side better, I guess. Do you remember?
Yeah, the spa side was really nice.
Yeah. So that was cool. They did the voiceover thing, which was kind of cool, and I don't know, Epcot Center-y. And then you had the Hunter Douglas. I don't know if you guys went in there. I've talked about it a few times, but they launched it last year, this idea of lighting the shades at night so that you can have kind of a lighting design within the room, not just dark shades. And they do the voiceover there too. So there's all these cool experiences that the booths are creating, I think, whether it's lighting or audio. And it's not just a theater demo anymore,
Right.
Right.
Well, and Leon created a new line of speakers that had lighting in the speaker itself. I don't know if you saw those, Jeremy, but they had worked with a pair of interior designers to create a whole new aesthetically different looking speaker that is also a light sconce.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And
That I forgot
I'm planning
about
on those in our new showroom. Yeah. Like, it looks really neat.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. I love the message from them. Whenever I don't get to talk to Noah, I'm a little disappointed. I was talking to somebody else there, but the message was really cool. It was like, everyone else is talking about hiding technology. We're trying to accentuate it or bring it into a design aesthetic, whether it's mid-century modern, whatever their theme is, but try to make it like sculpture and art and that type of thing. And I'm sure for that tour you were talking about, Jamie, that must have been a great stop for designers to see there's
definitely
stuff like that available.
So just to finish that thought, what I liked about Leon, some of what Leon has to offer is that it takes what you're familiar with, or what some people are familiar with, like Sonos sound bars and what have you, and then gives it just another overlay to make it more appropriate for the design of your home.
Right.
So we stopped at the Leon booth. That was one that we stopped at. We were at Quantum as well. Just to kind of step back a little bit, the Day of Discovery was a day for the architectural design community, as well as some retailer or real estate agents that were in the area. They had a variety of CEU sessions earlier in the day, and then lunch, and then guided tours. So not all the tours went to the same booths, because I think there were maybe 8 or so different groups that ended up pairing up and visiting a variety of different booths. We went to Quantum, Leon. We also went to Control 4, to Walmart. Some of the other booths, I think, were at Sony, Hunter Douglas. Who else was there? DMF, I think, was on the tour, perhaps. It was a good group of really products that would be a bit more design centric, not necessarily cables and HDMI, cables or tools or anything like that, but something
Yeah,
that would appeal
infrastructure
to the
stuff
design
is a
community.
little less.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it ended outside at Coastal Source, Draper, and a few others that were out there. And then we went to Marantz had an event at Le Meridian, and so it kind of pulled everybody together at the end for a nice demo and then cocktail hour. So
That's a great event. Great idea
it was.
to embrace that community for sure.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
so yeah. So you're both obviously experienced with teaching classes, whether it's continuing, it's like CEU type classes for partners in the industry or something at Expo. Is this the first time you've collaborated on a class? I know it was a kind of a last minute thing, but have you taught together before?
We've taught together before, mostly at, I think, Patrick, mostly we've talked at the Builder Show, I think, together.
The Builder Show, yeah, primarily, yeah.
So this was really the first time that we've paired up to our own community. Okay,
right. Yeah, and so Patrick, you normally do this with Frank, and Frank is that he's a unique guy, just an energetic ball of energy, whatever you want to call him. Trying to think of the way to describe Frank White when he's up in front of a class. But so you have this class that you've done called Hardballing. Can you describe the concept behind it?
Yeah, so we did a trial actually at the Business Xchange, believe it or not, back in 14 or 16. It was one of the breakout sessions we did. We did it as a test to prove that, conflict in our business is something that people need to address and they need to deal with, because they deal with it on a daily basis, and a lot of people just run from it. And so we did it as a trial, and it went overwhelming. And then the first time we did it at Expo, it sold out. It was like one of the very first classes, as well as this year. It sold out immediately, and the energy was amazing. The concept from it basically is that you deal with conflict in our business, whether it's with your own staff, whether it's with a customer, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your in-laws. You deal with conflict all the time. And so it kind of takes a high-level view of what conflict is, how to address it, where you fall on the grid on how much you deal with conflict or you don't deal with conflict. And then we started role playing. And I feel like I'm damn good at it. There's very few customers that can really get under my skin and that I can't come back with something, right, and have it answer. I'm almost an over prepper when I go to meetings. I almost prepping for the right answer all the time. So, doing that live with people was awesome. We had this one lady, we started off the session talking about kind of what conflict was. And I said, all right, who's ready to hardball? And this gal stood up, or didn't stand up, but she raised her hand. She said, let's go. And I'm like, wow, we got a live one here. This is cool. And so she was definitely a vet. I mean, she was good. She was really good. As a matter of fact, we offered a mic to her and says, you want to come teach the rest of the class? Because we just pretty much did it.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was talking about the example we used was design services agreement, to get paid for your design.
Yeah.
And we talked about how do you overcome that objection with your client when they say, I'm not paying you for anything, And so that was kind of the concept of what started it. And it was back and forth. I just said, okay, I'm going to be the customer and you're going to be the integrator. And I started asking questions and started, hardballing questions to her. And she was on it. I mean, and then we flipped roles. And then obviously we had 7 topics, Jamie, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Seven scenarios.
7 areas of conflict that you would run into, most likely.
Right. And so, I mean, the feedback the last couple of years has been it's more sales based, but I'm not in agreement with that. If your lead tech's out in the field, he's your eyes and ears for your company. He's your tech, he's your PM, he's your salesperson, he's kind of everybody, and he's going to deal with everybody in the field. So it's good for everybody in the company, not just the owners or the salespeople. And so we just kind of came up with 7 scenarios, and Jamie and I just kind of ham and egged it on all these different topics. And and came up with some really unique scenarios. And people really, I think that the light bulb went off or went on for a lot of them, and realized that there really is a way to get over this conflict fear.
Yeah, one of the points I was trying to make in the presentation was I feel a lot of the conflict really arises within us before it ever comes out between people. And so managing your internal conflict, the internal narrative you're telling yourself, the fears you think that will happen, something that might prevent you from picking up the phone and calling somebody or dealing with an issue directly, like it's always an area of personal work when we can look inside first and say, okay, where is this conflict coming from? Am I creating it in and of myself, or is this really something that does truly exist? Because I think we do create a lot of what could be. What are they thinking? You read an email, it sounds a little salty. What are all the reasons that they could have sent this email? And instead of just reading the email for what it is or picking up the phone and saying, hey, I didn't really understand the content, you want to clarify.
Yep.
I think that's a huge area that anybody, if we're focusing on conflict, we can always start within.
That's a great point, Jamie, because I thought about that after the class. I'm like, I'm the first person to tell people, did you see that text? Did you see that email that client read? And so I'll say, okay, we're all in the room. Each one of you read it and tell me what you think they said. And the answers are always different.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so what's the answer? Pick up the phone and ask them.
Right.
Don't assume, right? And don't read through an email or a text message and just assume one thing or another, right? And so you're right. It's an internal conflict to get over it before you deal with it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's interesting because you could take this from just being, like you said, a management or a sales sort of lesson or exercise and be a management exercise, because you're not only dealing with conflict from maybe clients and you're the top person that's going to take the heat, or it's your own team, conflict within your staff that people need to have some mediation on. So there's management angles as well. What are some of the other scenarios that you did besides the pushback on a paying for a design service?
Well, one of them you just kind of alluded to, which is on the management side. As a business owner, we charge $125 an hour for our install work, and yet we don't pay our installers $125 an hour. We don't pay them half that most of the time. And so a lot of times in business, we'll get the question of, well, you only pay me $25, $30 an hour, but you bill out for this, so you should pay me more. And that you should pay me more question came up as a hardball. Well, what do we do when your employee who's been with you for however long, maybe a long time, says, hey, I'm worth more?
Yeah. That's especially tough these days with everyone's labor rates having to go up and inflation, just the cost of living for people.
One of my favorite ones, I think, was it always comes up. A lot of people, especially, they're hungry for work and they're desperate for work, right? You just get started as an integrator and you're hungry. You just take anything and everything. And we kind of put the scenario, well, why do you take everything, right? And so you'll have a client that says, well, I just moved from my other house. I've got 8-year-old equipment. Will you just install it for me? Or, hey, I just bought some speakers off Amazon and they're $69 a pair. Should I buy 4 pair? I mean, how do you object to that? How do you decide as a company what you will or will not do? And so we spend a lot of time on that. Like, if you don't understand, and if you got 4 sales individuals in your company and all of them you're not telling the same story, you've got to circle back and make sure everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great training lesson for sure. Yeah, because you don't want to get in those scenarios where you're working with, you're not doing, it's not profitable, obviously, to go into those kind of scenarios. And it happens, I'm sure, all the time. I think that's actually the one on the description of your class that caught my attention. because I've heard that so often happening. So must have resonated with everyone there.
Well, the big part was that if you do take on that work and you do decide that that's the type of work you want, or it's an existing client, you're just giving them a once over, right?
Yeah.
Then you maybe should change it and not give them a hard bid. Maybe it should be 100% time material, because labor is 100% profit if you're billing correctly. You're going to lose out on the revenue of the equipment, but you're going to at least make it up on all the labor.
Right. That makes sense. Today's episode of Residential Tech Talks is brought to you by NICE, the global manufacturer of smart home security and building automation solutions. NICE is bringing together 30 years of innovation with award-winning products from Elan, Speakercraft, and Panamax to create a holistic ecosystem for builders, integrators, and consumers. Learn more about how you can create one home with one solution at go.niceforyou.com/RTT. Well, so you had a full class and a good interaction from everyone there. Did you feel like this is a class that's going to just keep going, and you feel like there's anything you need to change for the future based on the experience?
Maybe more time, I guess, would be the only thing. I think we could maybe add another 30 minutes potentially for some more Q&A or actual role play, right? But it was potentially we could maybe try and cut it down from 7 to 5 to have some more time. But it is challenging, you want to try to get through more than just sales objections. We want to try to touch on management and then business owner objections and conflict that you find. So you need a couple examples for each of those. And if we had about a half hour and had some more time for Q&A, I think the class would have been even better.
And that was some of the feedback we got, is that, make it so that it's relative to all disciplines of the company: sales, field, management, employee, whatever. And so maybe a little mixture of different scenario role playing. But once we got that one gal out of the way, I mean, everybody, like, their eyes lit up. They're like, all right, let's go. Yeah. It was awesome.
You need her every year as your plant in the audience to get the juices flowing.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So how long is the class? Was it an hour or an hour and a half?
I believe it was 2 hours or an hour and a half.
Oh my God.
It was an hour and a half.
I think it was an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It could
was
have
only
been
an hour and a half, and I think we've done impressive. 2 hours in the past.
Yeah, you feel like the attention span of all of us has gotten so short. The fact that they wanted more, that's telling you something about how much they enjoyed it and what they're learning from it. So congrats on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's very tough to take over a Frank White, in a room like that, because his energy is amazing. I mean, he got me into this, right? He's a big mentor of mine, and he scared the crap out of me when I first started the industry. I'd get in his class and nobody'd raise their hand. Nobody wanted to be object, because he was the master objector. He could handle any situation.
Yeah.
And so the fact that we're 20 plus years later, and I'm actually up front teaching with him, and now with Jamie, it's amazing how much that's influenced me and helped me in my career.
And Jamie, had you attended this class before when it was Patrick and Frank, or is this the first time?
I did, actually. I think it was 2019 whenever I attended it last. Mm-hmm. And it was Frank and Patrick were teaching it. I was assessing the class even at the time. So I was listening for like the quality of the content, as well as picking up nuggets of conflict management. And Frank and I definitely have different styles, but I feel that I did as good of a job as I could wearing his shoes for the 90 minutes that we had. And it would have been even better if he could have been in the room too. I mean, how much more energy could we have then? But we definitely would have needed another 30 minutes if we did that.
So, Jeremy, we gave away these little balls, these little baseballs, to everybody in the class as part of the hardballing session. Everybody kind of took it back as a little memento of the class. So hopefully it'll take on, and they'll request more of it next year.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. The great thing about CEDIA education is the the returning classes, the returning instructors who people just love and maybe haven't even known that they existed until they took the class, and then next year they want to do it again. But then the new faces, and I really did an assessment of all the classes, and there was a great blend and a really, really amazing collection of classes and panels this year. So obviously AI was a big topic, and maybe Jamie, you just finish on telling us a little bit about that 3-hour, I think it was, piece that you attended on Wednesday.
Yep.
About AI.
Mm-hmm.
I'm remiss that I didn't get to go to that.
Yeah, it was a half-day symposium where we had lunch, a presentation on what AI is, another presentation of applying it to life and business. There was a marketing recap. Ron Callis talked about how he uses AI as part of what he does with One Firefly. And then I think all of that really led up to a panel discussion that had 4 folks in the industry, not all integrators. Ari Supra, is that his last name? Masonians was there.
Yep.
And talked about how he used AI and ChatGPT to write HR, like not blog post. Job descriptions and interview profiles to get the right question to try to elicit the response from someone so you can tell if they'd be a good fit for your company or not. It was really fascinating. There was another gentleman that talked about how he uses a program called Make to automatically write client scopes of work just by having it read the D-Tools document. So it reads the D-Tools document and creates a scope of work without any human interaction, which is fantastic.
Wow.
There were 2 other people, and I have like pages of notes, but I left so inspired out of like, okay, we can use AI today. We can use it to fill a gap. We've got a couple of bottlenecks in our own company, and this could be an area that we lean into beyond helping us write blog posts, like beyond something kind of basic like responding to an email. That scope generation was like, wow, oh my gosh, how much time could we save if we just got 80% of the way there without having to even think about it? It was really incredible. And I think out of all of it though, is that the takeaway is that you don't just jump right into it if you're going to be successful. Like you really, if we are going to, and we need to embrace AI as a company, and most integrators should, we should develop our own kind of AR committee or AI committee within our company that looks at ethics and best policies and what have you to put some healthy boundaries around how you decide to use AI in your company. And then the flip side of that is, 3, 5, 10 years in the future, who knows how far in, we can all look very similar digitally if a client is looking for, and, we have great mechanisms to make ourselves findable and look professional. And so the final element that was really hit in the symposium was to remain human. And that as wonderful as AI is and as digitally perfect as we could look, we still have to have a human touch. And that is really what people are going to end up doing business with in the long term. Because if you look the same as your competitors, your price the same as your competitors, they need to do work with humans that they really can trust.
That's a great message for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And then that's really given me some ideas on where it could be useful too. If you have trouble, we've always had trouble finding good people, and if you're not replacing someone, but you're filling a gap that you can't find someone to do that work, then that's a good management decision. I think where it goes wrong is when you're dealing with, like you're talking about the actors strike and the writer's strike, I'm sorry, in Hollywood, and how they were concerned that the studios were going to start rewriting scripts with AI and not using writers, taking away jobs and taking away, ability to create. So, that's a different area. But what you're talking about, I think there's a way to do it and not go down the wrong path. So
Right.
good insight there. And I'm sure we'll continue to see that category covered in CEDIA education and elsewhere. So look forward to that. And thank you both so much for your time today. It was great catching up and just kind of
Absolutely.
scratch the surface, but have a great rest of your week. And thanks for your time.
Thanks for having
Awesome.
us.
Thanks, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Patrick Hartman is General Manager of Technology Design Associates in Reno, Nevada. You can learn more about his company at tdareno.com. Jamie Briesemeister is CEO and co-founder of Integration Controls in St. Louis, Missouri. You can learn more about her company at integrationcontrols.com. And that wraps up today's show, which was produced by Residential Tech Today, IPW, and Pretty Easy Podcasts. Please check out prettyeasypodcast.com if you want professional and affordable production help on your own podcast. And if you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the podcast wherever you watched or listened to this episode. Also, check out all the latest residential tech news at our magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can also subscribe to the print or digital magazine and to our Tuesday and Thursday email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential Tech Talks, autonomous lighting specialist to Residential Tech.
Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.